Hi, my name is Seraph Matthews, and today I'm going to discuss the city of Coppell, Texas. This is a city that cares about historic preservation, as you can see from the park that surrounds me, Grapevine Springs Park, an historic park if there ever was one. Today I will speak about the park and describe an overview of the city's history, and then its preservation techniques in the keeping of that history around. Now, a few quick words about Coppell. Coppell's geography itself is an interesting thing to behold. Coppell is surrounded by bodies of water and also has highways enclosed on each side of the city from the city surrounding it. These geographic features tend to make Coppell isolated from surrounding towns. However, that is just what significance the town starts. The town stands in close proximity to the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, as you can probably hear from the planes, which would make a major impact on the town's fortunes. Much of the town's historic preservation made possible by the Coppell Historical Society and its president, Willis Pete Wilson Jr. Now, the early history of Coppell. In early Coppell history, this park was a major site for Native Americans because of the Grapevine Creek, which is situated a few miles back in the park. Now, the earliest inhabitants were said to be dating here back to 1500 BC, along with animals such as bears and even buffalo. It is even rumored that the last buffalo in Coppell was killed right here in Grapevine Springs Park. The oldest fossil found in this park was an 8-foot shark fossil that is aged at nearly 8 million years old. Though most of history, Coppell was populated by Native Americans. Interestingly enough, Sam Houston, the first president of Texas, was pivotal in the construction of Coppell. Houston had spent various parts of his life with Native Americans and wanted to open North Texas to white settlement. Now, Houston set a meeting with 10 tribes to enter into a peace treaty at the Trinity River near what is now modern day Arlington. On his way to the treaty grounds, Houston and his group stopped at Grapevine Springs Park, where they prepared to sign the treaty. The treaty was eventually signed in 1844, and a dividing line was agreed upon. In 2005, a historical marker was put at the park commemorating this, and that's again a few yards back. And in 2012, an oak tree at the park was measured to be over 300 years old and was named a famous tree of Texas, with the title the Houston Campsite Oak. And that again is a few miles back that way. Now, the first land grant in Coppell was signed by James Parrish in the year 1859 for 60 acres of land. Now, Parrish was found by other family members who still remain, um, was followed by other family members who still remain in Texas, descendants. Now, Coppell in the following years was mainly seen as a farm community, cotton farmers in particular, and was first known as Grapevine Springs Prairie, and later Gibbs, named after the Texas Lieutenant Governor Barnett Gibbs. Because of the railroad that we built, it was also known as Gibbs Station. The name of the town was officially changed in 1890 to Coppell in honor of a railroad executive named George A. Coppell, who helped save the local railroad from bankruptcy. Now, the post office was changed to Coppell in 1892, the name of the post office. There was an area of Coppell that is maintained and known as Old Coppell, which contains some original buildings from this time and has memorabilia from this pivotal time in town history. And that again is towards my left, about a mile or two. So, Coppell's growth. Coppell became a haven for families, some of whom are immortalized in street names and in the houses that are still up to this day, as well as in older cemeteries. Now, some elaborate homes also became a mainstay of Coppell, as can be seen today in both older and modern homes. Schools began to rise up as well, with nearly 3 put into commission, though they sadly no longer stand. Now, another mainstay of the community, and perhaps the biggest, was the arrival of churches. This would cultivate communities among the growing number of settlers that would come into Coppell. Now, the first Methodist Church of Coppell was created back in 1879 and has been in motion since with some location changes. The first Baptist Church was created in 1896, and Assemblies of God Church was followed in 1954. Now, there are now a haven of churches, including Catholic churches in the community as well. Cemeteries also became pillars of the community, though many of them were built over for subdivisions in recent years during the city's boom. Now, Bethel and Paris Cemetery, though, two of the oldest in the town, are still in existence and are still in commission as well. Now, new development in the town began to occur. New developments in the town occurred as it entered the 20th century, most significantly, the railroads. The railroads brought people with it and changed the direction of the entire town. This occurred not less than a mile from here in Old Coppell. Now, because of the railroads, by 1919, new highways and roads were built connecting Dallas to Coppell. One such road is called Beltline Road, which would become a major connecting road with Dallas, and that still exists today. Now, through the 20s, Coppell remained prosperous through its cotton farming, but that would soon change after the Great Depression. As the Depression hit Coppell, many of its cotton farmers had to change to other types of farming, such as dairy farming, and most importantly, the WPA entered the city. Now, President Roosevelt had created WPA, or the Works Progress Administration, in 1935 to help workers in need. Now, the WPA would begin work behind me in Grapevine Springs Park. During the work, the WPA found a dinosaur skeleton, which is now on display at SMU, or Southern Methodist University. Work included creating doors, walkways, columns, footbridges, as well as a dam. And some of these things can be seen behind me and are still in workable use today. Now, around this time as well, Coppell was avidly involved in World War II and was given international notice. City limits began to widen by the 50s, and growth continued in the population. Now, the creation of a power plant and a fire department also attracted new notice. However, many newspapers still considered it the last frontier because of the undeveloped land. The power plant, though it gained a lot of workers, did not really grow the population or the housing development, which was very important at the time. Now, this would begin to change in the next 2 decades. This turbulent change. Through the 60s, the city limits of Coppell changed rapidly, causing much strife and issues. It would grow, and they would actually split up at one point and then come back together again. However, it was in the 70s that Coppell expanded due to quite a few new developments. Water sewages began to expand greatly and changed the whole framework of the time of the town. And then in 1964, Dallas made it known that there was a need to build a new airport for future aviation needs. The previous airport, Love Field, would no longer care for as much as they needed it to. Coppell was proposed to house a new Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, better known as DFW Airport. This would cause a major land boom in the area, as well as just in North Texas itself, and cause what was once a farming community basically to raise a population overnight. And in housing developments, farms disappeared as subdivisions were built. The new facility, the DFW, would begin to operate almost like a city, and by its present time, it basically does operate like a city. With the establishment of the water department and the creation of new interstate highways surrounding Coppell, it was now utterly transformed from what it once was, from its farmer community, from its genesis as a farm community. And however, with that still being said, there was still need for preservation to keep that history alive. And so here's a little bit about the preservation efforts that are occurring. The Coppell Historical Society has a number of different projects underway for preservation purposes. These include houses such as the Kirkland House, which was built in 1904, which they are working on to preserve. The Infield House, built in 1934, they're also working on, as well as the preservation of those 2 cemeteries that I spoke to you about Bethel, through ordinances with the city of Dallas and the county of Dallas, and applications for historical landmarks to keep these remnants of a past time still in motion. This also includes Old Town Coppell, near where we are right now, which recreates and restores what was once the central part of the town. Now, they also conduct oral interviews with some of the elderly, people who have been here and have been able to see Coppell actually transform through the years, and are now in the process of setting up a catalog of photographs that shows the town through different stages of its existence. They're working at that at the Coppell Public Library at this moment. It is safe to say that as long as preservation continues, Coppell may keep some of its historic um, past alive for others to see in the future. But I thank you very much for watching this presentation. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you again.